The inventor of the IQ test didn't actually believe intelligence was a fixed, unchangeable number. I mean, let that sink in for a second. The very test that our society uses to permanently categorize people as smart or average was created by a man who fundamentally rejected the idea that human intelligence is just carved in stone. Welcome to this explainer on Mindset, the New Psychology of Success by Carol S. Dweck. Today, we are going to dive right into the massive contradiction at the heart of how we view intelligence, talent, and success.
So listen to what Alfred Binet, the French inventor of the IQ test, actually had to say. He originally designed the test simply to identify children in Paris public schools who were struggling. And this wasn't to label them. It was to design new educational programs to get them back on track. Binet firmly believed that with practice and the right methods, we literally become more intelligent than we were before. He saw the human mind as something entirely malleable, not some fixed container.
And this brings us to a genuinely fascinating insight from Dr. Carol Dweck's early research. She was observing how children coped with failure by giving them increasingly difficult puzzles. Confronted with a really hard puzzle, one 10-year-old boy pulled up his chair, rubbed his hands together, smacked his lips, and literally shouted, "I love a challenge." He didn't think he was failing, he thought he was learning. Which raises a pretty profound question for us. What do these kids know that the rest of us don't? How can someone actually love failure?
Okay, let's get into part 1, the two mindsets, fixed versus growth. So, the fixed mindset basically traps us in this desperate, exhausting cycle of proving our worth. If you believe your intelligence, your personality, and your moral character are just dealt to you like a hand of cards, well, you spend your entire life trying to convince everyone you're holding a royal flush. Every situation becomes a test. Will I look smart or dumb? Am I a winner or a loser? But the growth mindset is entirely different. It treats the hand you're dealt as just the starting point. It's the core belief that your basic qualities are things you can cultivate and grow through your efforts, your strategies, and getting help from others. And Dweck's research reveals something incredible. This single, simple belief dictates whether we accomplish the things we value in life. It dictates our success in parenting, in business, in school, in our relationships. It literally permeates every single part of your personality.
Moving on to part 2, redefining failure and effort.
There is a massive, fundamental contrast in how these two mindsets process setbacks. You see, a fixed mindset turns a setback into a permanent label on your character. Failing a test or losing a game doesn't just mean you failed, it means you are a failure. It becomes an identity. I am a loser. But in a growth mindset, failure is just an event. It doesn't mean you aren't smart, it just means you aren't growing or reaching your potential quite yet. It's simply a signal that you need to learn.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. In one study, college students who did poorly on a test were given a chance to look at the tests of other students. The students with a fixed mindset specifically chose to look at the tests of people who did worse than them. Why? Because they needed to repair their shattered self-esteem and protect their ego. Meanwhile, the growth mindset students looked at the tests of people who did better because they genuinely wanted to understand their mistakes and correct their deficiency. They wanted to figure it out.
This leads us right to the toxic myth at the core of the fixed mindset. The idea that if you actually have to work hard at something, you must not be a true genius, right? People with a fixed mindset believe that things should just come easily to you if you are naturally talented. For them, effort is a bad thing. It's a huge red flag that reveals your inadequacies to the world.
Think about that classic Calvin and Hobbes dynamic. The little girl explains she didn't understand a chapter, so she reviewed her notes and is rereading it. Calvin looks at her completely horrified and says, "You do all that work? Huh, I used to think you were smart." This captures perfectly how society wrongly equates effortless success with true intelligence. We become terrified of showing that we actually have to try, because, well, if we try our hardest and still fail, we have no excuses left.
Let's look at part 3, mindsets in the real world, specifically sports and business.
In sports, everyone obsesses over naturals. John McEnroe was the ultimate natural tennis player. But man, he had a textbook fixed mindset. He didn't love to practice, and when he lost, he just couldn't handle the blow to his ego. Instead of learning from his mistakes, he threw these legendary tantrums. He blamed the referees, the temperature, he even blamed the sawdust on the court. His fixed mindset absolutely demanded that his talent be perfect, and when it wasn't, he had to deflect the blame to protect his fragile identity as a natural genius.
Now, contrast McEnroe's tantrums with true champions like track star Jackie Joyner-Kersee. Her philosophy is so simple. I don't mind losing as long as I see improvement or I feel I've done as well as I possibly could. If she loses, she just goes back to the track and works some more.
Or look at Michael Jordan, who famously got cut from his high school varsity team. Greatness doesn't come from the ego of the fixed mindset. It comes from the grueling, unglamorous, everyday process of learning and improving that defines the growth mindset.
And in business, it's the exact same story. Researchers once put business students into a simulated furniture company. Half were primed with a fixed mindset, told the task measured their underlying capacity. The other half were given a growth mindset, told it was a chance to practice management skills. The fixed mindset managers, much like the infamous executives at Enron, worried constantly about their capabilities. They hid their mistakes and completely failed to adapt. The growth mindset managers, like Alan Wurtzel, who totally turned around Circuit City, looked directly at their mistakes, altered their strategies based on feedback, and their productivity just absolutely soared.
Which brings us to part 4, the nuance, the false growth mindset.
We have to talk about a huge trap here. A true growth mindset requires far more than just handing out participation trophies or blindly praising effort. If a child or an employee is trying hard but using the totally wrong strategy and failing, just saying, "Hey, great effort," isn't a growth mindset. That's a false growth mindset. A true growth mindset demands that we tie that effort to actual learning strategies, that we seek help, and that we honestly, brutally confront our shortcomings so we can actually overcome them.
Let's wrap up with part 5, the journey to change. How do we actually do this?
Step 1 might actually surprise you. You have to embrace your fixed mindset. Yep, we all have it. We are all a mixture of growth and fixed mindsets, and there is zero shame in that. Step 2 is to actively recognize what triggers yours. What sends you into that defensive, walled-up state? Is it taking on a new challenge where you might fail? Is it receiving criticism from a boss? Is it a stressful deadline? You have to identify those specific triggers.
Step 3 is an incredibly powerful technique. Name your fixed mindset persona. Treat it as a distinct, separate character inside your head. When that persona shows up and warns you to avoid a challenge so you don't look dumb or starts beating you up over a setback, acknowledge it. And then, step 4, educate it. Talk to it. Say, "Hey, I know you're trying to protect me from failure, but I want to take this risk to learn." Invite that persona along on your growth journey.
Adopting this new mindset ultimately transforms your internal monologue. The fixed mindset creates this toxic environment of judge and be judged. Every situation is a scorecard. This means I'm a loser, this means they're better than me. Changing to a growth mindset shifts you completely to a learn and help learn framework. It becomes a collaborative environment where setbacks are just data points. They're just telling you what to work on next.
And this leaves us with a provocative question you should be asking yourself every single day. Because even after a big success, the journey isn't over. You must ask, what do I have to do to maintain and continue the growth? Because at the end of the day, you are never a finished product. The hand you were dealt was literally only the beginning. So which direction will you consciously decide to take your potential today?